Inimba full episode review August 3, 2026. Sydney finds out about Lwandle's betrayal. He built an empire with his own two hands, and now the one person he trusted to protect it has quietly handed a piece of it away. Today we're breaking down everything that happened on Inimba, and by the end of this video you'll understand exactly why Sydney's world just cracked wide open. Stay with me, because this one gets messy fast. Let's set the scene. For weeks now we've watched Lwandle drift further and further from the family that raised him. He's smart, he's ambitious, and honestly, he's tired of feeling like he's always standing in his father's shadow at Zondo Tech. That frustration didn't come out of nowhere. Episode after episode we've seen him passed over, second-guessed, and treated more like an employee than a son who's supposed to inherit something one day. So when Lazarus came along with promises of recognition, of being seen as his own man instead of just Sydney's boy, it's not hard to understand why Lwandle listened. The problem is, listening turned into something much bigger, and that's exactly what unravels in this episode. We open with the Ingukona household buzzing with excitement. Azanda is finally coming home, and for a family that has been through so much heartbreak, this homecoming feels like a rare gift. There's laughter in the kitchen, there's music playing, and for a moment it almost feels like Inimba is going to give us a break from all the tension. Thumika is fussing over the food, determined that everything has to be perfect for her son's return. Hlathi is trying to keep the peace between family members who still haven't fully healed from old wounds. And just when the warmth of the moment settles in, the show reminds us why we can never get too comfortable on this series, because an unexpected visitor shows up with unfinished business, and that visitor's arrival is going to ripple through every storyline we care about. Now let's talk about Sydney, because this is really his episode. Sydney has spent so much of this season holding his family together with sheer willpower. He's been dealing with pressure at Zondo Tech, pressure from Lazarus and Zolika circling like vultures, and pressure from a household that is anything but peaceful. But nothing prepares him for what he learns about his own son. Word starts to spread, quietly at first, that Lwandle has been signing documents behind his back, documents that hand control and influence over to Lazarus. For Sydney, this isn't just a business betrayal. This is personal. This is the son he raised, the son he sacrificed for, choosing the enemy over the family name. What makes this hit so hard is the way the show slows down to let us sit with Sydney's reaction. There's no dramatic shouting match right away. Instead we get this heavy, quiet moment where you can see the realization landing on his face piece by piece. He's not just angry, he's hurt in a way that goes deeper than business. You can tell he's replaying every conversation with Lwandle in his head, wondering when exactly his son slipped away from him, wondering if there were signs he missed. That's the kind of writing that makes Inimba stand out from other soapies right now. It doesn't just give us conflict for the sake of conflict, it gives us the emotional wreckage underneath it. Meanwhile, Lwandle is dealing with his own storm. He didn't sign those papers because he woke up one day wanting to destroy his father. He signed them because he's been convinced, whether rightly or wrongly, that Lazarus is offering him something his own family never could, a seat at the table as an equal instead of a shadow. But here's the thing about deals made with people like Lazarus and Zolika. They rarely come without strings, and Lwandle is about to find out just how tightly those strings are tied. There's no promise on the table that guarantees him any real position within Xhosa. He's essentially handed away leverage for the possibility of respect, and possibility isn't the same as certainty. If he keeps signing away pieces of what should be his without getting anything solid in return, he's not building a future, he's setting himself up to be discarded the moment he's no longer useful. This is where the tension between Lwandle and the rest of the family becomes unbearable to watch, in the best way. Because everyone around him can see what he can't, or maybe what he refuses to admit. His siblings, his extended family, even people close to Lazarus's camp seem to sense that Lwandle is being used. There's a particular moment where his own frustration boils over, where he insists that everyone stop treating him like he doesn't know what he's doing, and yet the more he defends his choices, the more it feels like he's trying to convince himself just as much as everyone else. Now let's shift over to the Lwandle side of the story, because Inimba never gives us just one crisis at a time. Zethu's pregnancy has become its own emotional battlefield, especially now that we're inching closer to her due date. There's real tenderness in these scenes, but there's also friction, particularly around boundaries. Thumika's excitement about becoming a grandmother again is genuine, but it's also overwhelming for Zethu, who is trying to hold on to some sense of ownership over her own experience of motherhood. When Zethu finally puts her foot down, reminding everyone that this is her baby and not anyone else's to plan or control, it's a small moment, but it says so much about where her character has grown. She's no longer the girl who lets everyone else make decisions for her. She's finding her voice, even while she's exhausted, even while her body and her emotions are stretched thin. At the same time, we can't ignore what's simmering between Core and her own ambitions. She's watching her parents navigate power plays with Zondo Tech, and it's clear she's torn between family loyalty and her own desire to carve out a career that isn't handed to her because of who her parents are. There's a quiet moment where she almost opens up about wanting recognition on her own terms, echoing, whether the show intends it or not, some of the same hunger that pushed Lwandle toward Lazarus in the first place. It makes you wonder if the show is setting up a parallel storyline, showing us two young people from different families making very different choices when faced with similar pressure. One chooses patience. The other chooses to burn the bridge. Let's not forget the emotional weight sitting underneath all of this, the grief that never really leaves this family. Thumika's mental health has been a quiet undercurrent for a while now, and this episode touches on it again in a way that feels respectful rather than exploitative. When she starts speaking to a photograph as though a loved one who is gone might actually be present for a family celebration, it's heartbreaking, and it's clear that the people around her notice too. Hlathi in particular seems to carry a real concern for her, worried that stress from everything happening with Zondo Tech and the family drama could push her back into a darker place. It's a reminder that Inimba, underneath the business rivalries and the romantic tension, is really a show about a family trying to hold itself together after loss, after betrayal, after every kind of hardship life can throw at them. Back to the main event though, because Sydney's discovery about Lwandle is the beating heart of this episode. What happens once the truth is fully out in the open is where things get really interesting. Sydney doesn't just confront Lwandle with anger, he confronts him with disappointment, and if you've watched enough drama you know disappointment cuts so much deeper than rage ever could. There's a moment where Sydney essentially asks his son if everything he built, every sacrifice he made, meant nothing to him. Lwandle doesn't have a clean answer. He stumbles, he tries to justify himself, and for a second you can see the boy underneath the ambition, the son who still wants his father's approval even while he's actively working against him. It's worth pointing out how well the show uses silence in this confrontation. Instead of over-explaining every emotion with dialogue, we get long pauses, we get characters looking away from each other, we get body language doing the heavy lifting. That's a hallmark of good soapy writing, letting the audience feel the tension instead of being told what to feel. And just as that confrontation reaches its peak, the show cuts back to the celebration at the Ndukana household, reminding us that life doesn't pause for anyone's personal crisis. As Xander's homecoming continues, the family tries to keep smiling for his sake, but there's an undercurrent of unease now that the unexpected visitor has arrived. Without spoiling exactly who that visitor turns out to be, I'll say this: their presence seems designed to stir up old history that this family thought was buried. It's the kind of setup that tells us the drama isn't slowing down anytime soon. If anything, it's about to widen out across multiple families at once. What I appreciate about this episode is how it balances so many moving pieces without losing sight of the emotional core. Sydney's heartbreak over Lwandle isn't just a plot device to create conflict, it's a genuine exploration of what happens when ambition and loyalty collide inside a family. Lwandle isn't written as a cartoon villain either. He's a young man who feels overlooked, who made a desperate choice, and who is now going to have to live with the consequences of that choice, whatever they turn out to be. That kind of nuance is what keeps viewers coming back episode after episode. Looking ahead, it's hard not to wonder what Sydney's next move will be. Does he try to repair the relationship with his son, hoping to pull him back from Lazarus's influence before it's too late? Or does this betrayal mark a permanent fracture in the family, one that pushes Sydney to protect what's left of Zondo Tech at any cost, even if that means cutting Lwandle off completely? And what about Lazarus and Zolika? They've clearly been playing a long game, and Lwandle may just be one piece on their board. If he isn't given the position he was hoping for, will he realize he's been used before it's too late, or will pride keep him locked into a path that's only going to hurt him more? Then there's Zethu, edging closer to giving birth in the middle of all this chaos, a new life entering a family that is currently at war with itself. There's something almost poetic about that timing, the arrival of a baby right as an older generation's mistakes and betrayals come crashing down around them. It sets up a beautiful contrast for future episodes, hope and heartbreak sitting side by side, which is honestly something Inimba has always done well. And we can't forget Tamika's fragile emotional state, or Kor's quiet ambition simmering just beneath the surface, or the mystery of exactly who this unexpected visitor is and what unfinished business they're bringing back into the Engukona family's life. Every one of these threads feels like it's building towards something bigger, and if this episode is any indication, we are in for some intense drama in the days ahead. So that's the full rundown of what went down in this episode of Inimba. Sydney's world has been shaken by his own son's betrayal, Lwandle is caught between ambition and loyalty with no clean way out, and an entire family celebration got interrupted by a visitor whose motives we still don't fully understand. If you've been feeling for Sydney this episode, or if you think Lwandle still has a chance to make things right, let me know in the comments. I want to hear your theories on where this story goes next. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next recap, drop a like if this breakdown helped you catch up, and I'll see you in the next video with everything that happens next on Inimba.